When I think of music in totality, complete. You know, like from the lowest blues to the highest symphony.
Donny Hathaway, the musical genius. He was a rare breed of musician whose artistry received universal acclaim, untouched by criticism. Known for his crystal-clear voice that seemed to emerge from the depths of his soul, Hathaway's music was a comforting presence, much like a warm blanket on a chilly winter day. His effortless vibrato added a profound depth to the emotions he conveyed through his songs. Additionally, his skills extended beyond singing to piano playing and songwriting, earning him the respect of not only his fans but also fellow musicians. He was what we call a musician's musician. Did you know he started writing his own songs as early as age 6? That he started playing the piano and singing professionally at age 4? This gentleman was truly anointed and definitely cut from a different cloth whose fabric they don't make anymore. Donny's star was shining, his career was at its peak, and everything seemed to be working in his favor, until something tragic happened, something that was never seen before. His behavior became erratic, and those around him found him increasingly difficult to work with. He claimed to hear voices and expressed fears that people were plotting to steal his music. He never returned to his former self, and tragically, he would be found dead below the 15th floor window of his room, New York's Essex house on the 13th of January, 1979. It was alleged that he took his own life after a somewhat lengthy battle with paranoid schizophrenia, but his story in some way doesn't seem to add up. Did he really do it? Did someone else delete him? If so, for what purpose? As a sacrifice? Did he refuse to be manipulated? Did he find out something he wasn't supposed to? Or was it a case of someone being haunted by something deep, something he had done, and the guilt got the better of him?
That's the thanks I get. I taught you everything, and now that you're an established singer, you toss me aside like an old shoe. Why? Why? Tell me why!
Before delving into the mysteries surrounding his death and the eerie details of his last hours, let's get to know how this gentleman defied all odds in his journey to stardom, and how his extraordinary talent possibly made him a target. But before that, hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and like the video to enable it reach a greater audience. From the humble beginnings in the projects to the biggest stage in the industry, this is the untold chilling story of Donny Hathaway. Donny Edwards Hathaway was born on the 1st of October 1945 in Chicago, Illinois, to Drusilla Huntley, a stay-at-home mother, and Hosea Brown, a serviceman who, in some way, had been traumatized by the just-concluded World War II. Shortly after birth, Donny's parents separated, with Donny remaining with his mother. Taking care of her son on her own proved too much for a young Drusilla, and in 1948, when Donny was only 3, she decided to go back to her mother and Donny's grandmother, Martha Crumwell, aka Pitts, in the Carr Square housing project of St. Louis, Missouri at the time. Grandma Martha was a well-known professional gospel singer, guitarist, and a respectable member of the Trinity Baptist Church. Her dedication to the church and her love for music deeply inspired Donny. At just 4 years old, during one of her performances at church, Donny, who seated with his mother, rushed to the front and began singing along with her. The congregation was more than impressed. His grandma, too. This day set the stage for a lifelong journey in the world of music. Recognizing his potential, Martha nurtured his talent, taking him to church practices and eventually touring the Midwest, where he performed as Little Donny Pitts, the nation's youngest gospel singer. On top of the singing, Donny also developed a liking to preaching and would imitate the preacher back home in front of his mother and grandma. As time went by, Donny developed a deep interest in the piano, which prompted his grandma to buy him one. This enabled him to express himself even more, and by age 6, Donny was already composing his own songs. Though initially inclined towards a life in the church, Donny's aspirations shifted during his teenage years at Vashon High School in St. Louis. There, he received classical piano training and decided to pursue a professional music career. After graduating in 1963, his talent earned him a scholarship to Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he studied both music education and music theory. While Howard primarily focused on classical European music, the students explored jazz, blues, and soul music outside of their formal studies, genres that Donny would later integrate into his illustrious music career. Still at Howard, Donny Hathaway was introduced to a pivotal opportunity by fellow student and drummer Rick Powell, who was forming a band for a local nightclub. Powell initially approached Harold Wheeler for the pianist position, but with Wheeler unavailable, he recommended Hathaway, his friend from St. Louis. Despite being raised with a strict focus on classical and religious music by his grandmother, who deemed other music genres as the devil's music, Hathaway was persuaded by Powell to audition. Demonstrating his skills on the piano and vocals, Hathaway impressed the club owner and secured the gig, joining Powell as the Rick Powell Trio. This experience proved invaluable, offering Hathaway not only a stable income, but also professional growth. His extraordinary talent was evident even during casual piano practices on campus, where he captivated fellow students, including Leroy Hudson, who remarked on Donny's genius. Hathaway and Hudson became close friends to a point of becoming roommates. Fast forward on 4th of April 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, sending shockwaves around the country. Riots broke in Washington, D.C. as the Howard University students joined too. This inspired Donny and Hudson to compose The Ghetto, a song that would later open bigger doors for them. Additionally, Hathaway took on directing roles for the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity choir and formed a vocal group going by the name The Cavaliers, a name adopted from the Cavalier apartments where most of them resided. Around the same time, soul legend Curtis Mayfield of The Impressions was scouting for talent for his new Curtis Records label. After hearing about the Cavaliers, he arranged an audition. Long story short, the group impressed after singing an impression song that Donny Hathaway had rearranged so uniquely that Mayfield and his bandmates initially didn't recognize it was theirs. Satisfied, Mayfield signed them and renamed them the Mayfield Singers, which included members Guy Draper, Marshall Morrison, Augustus Pearson, Michael Hawkins, Leroy Hudson, Barbara Carter, and Hathaway. Curtis Mayfield later offered Hathaway a role at Curtis Records in Chicago as an A&R representative, an opportunity he found too sweet to refuse, and as a result, dropped out of the university. In Chicago, Curtis Mayfield recognized Donny Hathaway's exceptional musical intellect and potential for greatness, often stating that Donny was destined for significant achievements and that he felt privileged to work with such a talent. Donny did what he did best in Chicago, getting noticed by other influential producers, the likes of guitarist Phil Upchurch, who even managed to get him gigs at Chess Records, where he worked. At Curtis Records, Hathaway began his singing career by recording his first single in 1969, a duet with June Conquest titled I Thank You Baby, and its B-side, Just Another Reason. However, conflicts arose between Hathaway and Mayfield due to their strong personalities and differing visions. Feeling restricted and unable to fully express his creative ideas, Hathaway requested his release from Curtis Records, which was granted. Determined to gain more control over his music, Hathaway aimed to start his own label. Lacking sufficient business experience, he reached out to his old friend Rick Powell, and together they founded Don Powell Publishing Company. Their initial releases included works Hathaway had developed with Leroy Hudson, like The Ghetto, Trying Times, and Our Ages or Our Hearts. During this period, another Howard University alumnus, Roberta Flack, had caught the attention of Les McCann during his scouting period in Howard, and in the process helped her secure a deal with Atlantic Records to record her first album, First Take. This album featured Trying Times and Our Ages or Our Hearts from the Donny Powell catalog, contributing to its success and impressing the label owners. As a result, Jerry Wexler, through King Curtis, approached Donny and Rick in a bid to sign them to Atlantic label.
There was no limit to Donny Hathaway's talent, and I thought that he was going to be number 4. And there was quite a Donny Hathaway cult today among young people, and they realized his brilliance as a composer, keyboard man, and vocalist.
Valuing their creative independence, the pair insisted on publishing their own songs. They ultimately signed with Atco Records, a division of Atlantic, forming Don Rick Enterprises. They immediately released The Ghetto Part 1" under Atco, a single that quickly climbed the charts, enhancing Donny's reputation. This Atco move, however, upset Curtis Mayfield, as he considered the label his rival. He retaliated by persuading Donny's friend Leroy Hudson to join Curtis Records, offering him a prominent position in his Impressions vocal group. Around this period, Donny recorded This Christmas, which would later become a modern holiday classic when re-released in 1991 on Atco Records' Soul Christmas compilation album.
Hang on, mistletoe, I'm gonna get to know you better.
Bolstered by the success of The Ghetto, Atco encouraged Donny to record an album. Collaborating with Rick Powell, Donny produced Everything is Everything, his debut album which showcased a mixture of musical genres. He described the album as an exploration of various aspects of black music, a cultural mission he held dear. The album featured tracks like Misty, demonstrated just how deftly and effortlessly he could meld those influences into a performance. Sugar Lee was a nod to his Howard University days, and Thank You Master for My Soul, a gratitude hymn for his musical gift. To be young, gifted, and black underscored his own realization of potential, resonating with the aspirations of many young African Americans. Even though the album highlighted Donny's innate abilities in every regard, from songwriting, arranging, producing, and singing, it included an intriguing element in its opening track, Voices Inside, Everything is Everything. The lyrics, I hear voices, I see people, could be perceived as a hint of Hathaway's future struggles with schizophrenia, yet they were meant to evoke a sense of community and the vibrancy of everyday life. Away from that, despite him fully being in control of the production of his first album and its success, those working with him noticed his first bout of depression and self-doubt. They say a wave of sadness would hit him once in a while when they were with him. Donny Hathaway's career soared further in 1971 with the release of his second album, Donny Hathaway, featuring mostly covers of contemporary pop, soul, and gospel songs. His collaboration with Roberta Flack on Carole King's You've Got a Friend reached the top 10 on the R&B charts and led to their acclaimed duet album, Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway, in 1972. The album's hit, Where Is the Love, topped the R&B charts, reached the top 5 on the pop charts, and earned them a Grammy, with the album itself going gold. Hathaway also ventured into soundtracks, creating the theme for the TV series Maude and scoring the film Come Back Charleston Blue. That year, he also released Donny Hathaway Live, recorded at iconic venues The Troubadour in Los Angeles and The Bitter End in Greenwich Village. The album, which peaked at number 4 on the R&B charts, is celebrated as one of the greatest live albums. Hathaway's commitment to his community was evident as he performed at several benefits, including for the Fred Hampton Legal Assistance Scholarship Fund and the National Black Political Convention. Donny Hathaway's period of outstanding musical achievement was followed by a deepening struggle with mental health issues, marked by intense anxiety and paranoia. Friends attribute this decline to the pressures of his success and his trusting nature, which made him vulnerable to music industry associates who often prioritize their interests over his well-being. During 1973 and 1974, Hathaway was hospitalized multiple times and diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. According to the American Psychiatric Association, schizophrenia is defined as a chronic brain disorder that affects less than 1% of the U.S. population. When schizophrenia is active, symptoms can include delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, trouble with thinking, and lack of motivation. Although schizophrenia is still incurable to this day, researchers are diligently working toward finding safer and more effective treatments. If you or someone you know is battling a condition like this, it's important to reach out for help and seek appropriate medical care. Remember, you are not alone and you don't have to be. Together, we'll win this war. His wife, Eulala, recounted how during his worst periods, Hathaway was prescribed dozens of medications daily. While these medications somewhat stabilized his mood, they severely limited his creative abilities due to their debilitating side effects. When he was well, he was highly productive and a devoted father, but these periods of stability became increasingly rare. Nevertheless, in the summer of 1973, he released Extensions of a Man, achieving critical acclaim, but soon after, he vanished from the public eye, overwhelmed by his personal challenges, spending most of this time in and out of hospital. During his hiatus, various unfounded rumors circulated about him. Some speculated that he had significant debts to the mob who were out to get him, others believed he was silenced for his civil rights activism, and some thought he defied industry demands, leading to his deletion. However, those close to him, who visited him in the hospital, understood that his erratic behavior was due to his illness. Despite his condition, Hathaway continued to play the piano, even in the hospital, though his mood swings strained his personal and professional relationships, leading to a separation from his wife and a pause in his collaboration with Roberta Flack. Donny managed to perform sporadically in 1975 and 1976, but his illness frequently overcame him. In 1977, he achieved a brief resurgence by collaborating again with Roberta Flack after airing out their differences on The Closer I Get to You, a track from her album, Blue Lights in the Basement. The song was a major hit and put them in the running for a Grammy, leading to plans for a second duets album. In January 1979, while in a particularly low period, Atlantic Records intervened to secure his release from hospital treatment for the recording sessions. However, returning to the studio did not alleviate his symptoms. One day, according to James Montume, one of the writers of The Closer I Get to You, Donny experienced a severe episode, abruptly screaming and running from the recording booth. Montume found him in a corner, visibly terrified, claiming that people were attempting to kill him and that his brain was connected to a machine designed to steal his music and sound. The events of the chilly evening of January 13, 1979, remain etched in memory. Earlier that day, Donny Hathaway and Roberta Flack had been in the studio working on their new album, coupled with Donny also finishing writing new music. Later in the day, the two, together with their managers Edward Howard and David Franklin, met at Roberta's Central Park West apartment where they had their dinner. They say Donny was in high spirits and really excited by the fact that they had been nominated for the Grammy Awards, thanks to their duet, The Closer I Get to You, and also due to their finalization of $1 million deal for their collaboration on the new album. Immediately after dinner, Roberta then dropped him together with his manager Ed Howard at the Essex house where the two were staying. As they parted for the night, Donny asked Roberta on a lighter note if he had any leftovers of the cake they had at dinner. Unfortunately, none had remained, but Roberta promised him that she would get him some the following Tuesday. They bid each other goodnight, and Ed and Donny proceeded to the building, unaware it would be their final farewell. Back at the hotel, Donny mentioned to Ed that he had something to discuss, but entered the elevator before elaborating. So Ed assumed that if Donny wanted to talk, he'd probably call him once he was in his room. Later that night, shortly after 11 p.m., the Midtown North Police Station in New York City received a distressing call about a man who had either fallen or jumped from a 15th floor window at the Essex house on Central Park South. That man was Donny Hathaway. Upon arrival and carefully assessing the situation, the police reported his death as him having taken his own life. Funny thing, no suicide notes were found in his suite, which was surprisingly double-locked from the inside. His suitcases, music tapes, recorder, and sheet music were all intact. Everything else looked normal, except that his bedroom window was open on that cold, rainy winter night, and the safety glass had been removed and neatly placed on the bed. In his account, Donny's manager, Ed, says that the night became strange for him as it progressed. He received a call from the security personnel of the building telling him that something had happened. Immediately after the call, there was a knock on the door by a guard who delivered the devastating news of Donny's death. It left him speechless, devastated, and broken. The fact that he wasn't going to know what Donny wanted to tell him earlier that night left a permanent wound in his heart. When word of his passing got out, it sent shockwaves among his fans and friends, leaving many struggling to grasp the reality and manner of his untimely departure. The rumors surrounding Donny Hathaway's tragic demise gained traction with various troubling theories. Some speculated that he was a victim of those close to him, sacrificed for their financial gain, given his valuable but vulnerable position, that they never had his best interest at heart. Others suggested that his mental health issues made him unpredictable and unmanageable, leading to his alleged removal by industry insiders. There were whispers that Donny had uncovered dangerous secrets, prompting his untimely end. Among those who believed it was suicide, some theorized it was driven by personal turmoil, including unconfirmed rumors about his sexual orientation, conflicting with his deep religious beliefs, leading him to despair from the guilt. Others posited that his erratic medication adherence had exacerbated his mental health struggles to a breaking point, leaving him with no escape but death. However, at Donny's funeral, officiated by Reverend Jesse Jackson, a different perspective was offered. Reverend Jackson suggested the possibility that Donny's death might have been accidental. It is said that since his childhood days, he had this habit of leaning out of windows and quote-unquote preach to the winds, considering birds as his congregation. The funeral was attended by luminaries like Roberta Flack and Stevie Wonder, and Donny's grieving mother, who bore the profound sorrow of a parent outliving a child. Donny Hathaway left behind 3 daughters, Eulala Donnell, Lala, and Kenya Kanklibra, born to his wife Eulala Vaughn, and Donita Hathaway from his relationship with Charlotte. Lala and Kenya have both established careers in singing, continuing their father's musical legacy. Donita, on the other hand, heads the Donny Hathaway Legacy Project, which not only honors her father's memory, but also provides mental health support and resources for creative artists and those in need. This initiative reflects a commitment to ensuring that others might not suffer as her father did. Donny would undoubtedly be proud of his daughters if he was around. Finally, Donny Hathaway's cause of death may remain a mystery, but his legacy of soulful vocals, musical brilliance, and kindness endures. We can only imagine the amount of success he would have achieved had he been still alive. He might be gone, but his DNA and music will forever be prevalent.